Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Upset Podcast. We're happy to be back with you another week. I'm going to bring on my fellow upsetters at this time. What's up, guys?
Yeah, we're here.
Awesome. So we're really looking forward to today's podcast because this is our opportunity to hear what some of you all have to say about some of the topics that we've covered. We have over 10 episodes under our belt. And we've enjoyed reading your comments and seeing some of your questions. So this whole episode is dedicated to everything that you had to say and our responses to them. You guys ready for this? It should be fun, right?
Yeah, let's go. Let's go. They may not like my response, but go ahead. We go.
So our launch episode, of course, if you guys remember, was Meet the Host. So this was our opportunity for us, in our own words, to share a little bit about ourselves. Now, those watching listened to us, and one viewer had an assessment. This was posted on Facebook by Gloria Dorsey. She said, "I'm not sure what this discussion about, but what an interesting bunch of nerds," which I mean in the most complimentary way. I love nerds. So, guys, do you classify with that? Do you consider yourselves nerds?
What is a nerd? I mean,
right. Define that.
What's a nerd? No, Chuck, don't
have glasses.
Stop, Chuck. You are a nerd, Chuck. So don't you a nerd.
Well, there's always the nerds who asks, "What is a nerd?"
I find that the word nerd is used by people that don't see themselves as technical.
Okay.
And if you're over the top with your tech, then you're a nerd, But I don't consider myself that, no more than you guys. So
he's like, if I'm one, you are too.
Right, yeah, name calling. Please name calling. No, Chuck, I do consider. Everybody they're looking at podcasts, but I've been in your office. I've been in your toy room. and Chuck, you a nerd. There's no doubt about that. There's always something new on the table. There's always something that I got to go back and Google because you just said something that I got to think about. So you're a nerd. You're a nerd. So I got to admit that. Sorry about that, Santa.
That's fine. I mean, I understand. I mean, I've had a couple of friends come by my office just to see me, and they said, "Oh, I really didn't come to see you. I wanted to see what you had new."
Yeah.
And then they would point to stuff. What's that do? And what is that? So I guess I have to.
So GP, Chuck takes care of all of our, not just the media, but he takes care of all of our, our communication stuff. I'm talking about like our iPads, our phones, all of that. The only problem that I have with Chuck getting my equipment is to figure out if I'm going to get my equipment back. It's almost like he's gonna test my stuff. Anytime he has my stuff, I was like, Chuck, did you check out this, that, or the other? Let me tell you what new your phone can do.
And that's cool. And I think that's what a nerd is. Nerd is someone who doesn't just look at the surface, like you can hear coming. Nerd digs deeper and wants to explain each part of whatever's happening. And beyond tech, I don't think this was just exclusive to tech. And she didn't just say Charles, because as we know, Tally's not here, but he throws out some words that we all have to, refer to our dictionary
and thesaurus.
That's on regular conversation. That's regular conversation.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. And I think folk can see in the background, they can see that we are using, high-end microphones, and we're tweaking our sound and stuff like that. So it most likely coming from a person who really doesn't get to dive into all of that. They just, they just want stuff to work. And understood.
Yeah.
Understood.
And I also think that we're nerds in our own ways. So like some of us are culture nerds, some of us are political nerds, some of us are tech nerds, some of us are communication people nerds. So I mean, we all have our different areas of expertises. So you can call us a nerd. We are.
Hey, we receive it. And
well, I know we got to move on, but for Gloria's sake, if you remember the James Bond series, Chuck to me is like Miss M. You know what I'm saying?
Now wait. I thought you were going to say the tech dude that Bond visits before he goes out, and he's showing him all his stuff.
Same office though. They're in the same office. He'll come up to him. I'm not calling you a lady. I'm not saying that. Miss M is the one that deals with.
I know.
Secret.
Well, she's the boss.
Yeah, she's the boss. Because okay, just remember when you press this button, everything around you is going to explode. Thanks.
Wow.
Love it. So, but I'm glad everyone's a good sport, and you all don't mind being nerds. No, I don't. Yeah. So, then we moved on to episode 2, which pretty much aired the same night, and that is where we shared what the Upset podcast was going to be about. Right. And I don't know, it was a couple months ago. I don't know if we even all remember, but we talked about some of the topics that we wanted to cover and that we really wanted to upset the fruit basket and deal with some of these tough issues. So, how about we give ourselves a little report card, on a scale of 1 to 10, how much are we upsetting as much as we intended in the beginning? 5.
Yeah, I agree.
5. Listen, we do more upsetting in the green room and after.
Yeah, exactly.
And every time we end, we said, why don't we just say that on there? And I think we're still a little careful. But we're gonna
we're treading lightly because we don't want to offend. I think we're being authentic in what we're talking about, but I do know that there's a certain level of restraint that we kind of use to make sure, like we always say, that we keep our jobs.
The paycheck.
But
I don't think we should. Because we certainly don't want our audience to think that, they're not going to touch that subject because they're worried about their paychecks. I think that we should find a happy medium and not suggest that we're not going to handle tough topics that point to our church. I mean, our church is not perfect. We know that. And there are tons of issues that are happening on the local church level, in the upper corporate management. They aren't all bad things, but they're interesting things. And I think we should be able to talk about it. I mean, there are several publications, Adventist publications. They're not sponsored by the church, but they're sponsored by individual groups, independent, media groups that, keep up with whatever the church is doing. And sometimes they're critical. But I just think that let me refer back to when President Obama, when he became president, Alvin Kibble wrote an article in the Review and Herald. I don't know if any of you ever saw that.
Go ahead, I remember it.
And he I can't quote a lot of things, but in essence, the article suggested that he felt that, when it was announced and recognized that the General Conference, that there was like crickets. The response was almost like we have no comment.
But listen,
he's celebrating. This is wonderful. And yet he felt that the response at the North American and General Conference level was not as exciting and celebratory. So that was sort of scathing in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's fine to do that. I think that we are well prepared. I think even though we work together, we're starting to know each other in our circles. Just to sometimes we you might look at me and say, "Oh, Pat's crazy," but I do have boundaries, and I do have conservative. I'm conservative in a lot of areas, and I think to tell you guys who are our viewers is that we're getting used to putting you on a scale with us. And I think we're in practice run right now. So look out. We're coming for you.
Yeah,
that's right. We got some topics lined up. Yep.
Yeah.
Well, when you think about upsetting, Christ was quite an upsetter.
Yeah, sure. Definitely. Definitely. He died for that.
Mm-hmm.
And we did have a quote from this episode from Elta Jackson Henry. She said, "This is going to be epic." I guess what we lined out sounded pretty good. Her new word of the week, I think this is one of those words Tally used.
Right.
I don't even know if I know how to remember it.
Quixotic.
Serves to describe an idealism without regard to practicality. So You know, in our nerdiness, we are educating. But yes, we do hope that this comment will remain true, that this will indeed become an epic podcast as we continue to tackle different subjects. And as you said, we're just warming up. We have some other things coming down the queue. So the first topic that we really covered with the podcast was the vaccine, if you guys recall. At that time, it wasn't obvious as new. It was newer than it is now, obviously. And so we were musing about our thoughts. You guys remember that about the vaccine at that stage?
Right.
Yep.
And we all kind of shared where we were with it. So, but we also promised you guys that we would come back and share later where we are. So here's that little update. So at that point, I don't think any of us had taken. Oh no, Tally had taken it. But the rest of us had not. So where are we now? Have we changed our minds? Are we still where we were?
No, I'm still on the fence.
Okay.
I'm still waiting, but I'm
my
open to
wife
taking
and
it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I I always ask my wife if she's, because if she says, okay, I think we ought to take it, I'm going to take it. We need to take it. I'll probably take it in protest. But my position is I'm still on the fence. I'm not an anti-vaccine person. So I do believe that people have the power of choice. You can choose what you want to do. And if it works for you, that's great. But for me right now, jury is still out.
All right.
I did my last one, my second one yesterday. And I remember a little bit before we did the first recording that I said I would never do that. I don't believe in the 666 thing or they putting a chip inside of us. I don't believe any of that.
Right.
I just thought it happened too fast in order to go ahead and take it. But when I saw my friends, my doctor, especially my doctor friends, started to do it, I said, okay, and put it on Facebook and social media. I said, okay, I'll go ahead and do it. And the brave part is that I did it with my brother. And so because we did it together, it was we felt a little bit braver to be able to do it. But it messes with your head a little bit. Once you take it, your mind is going, oh, my toes are hurting me. What's going on? I feel dizzy, but that's, I wasn't feel, that's all phantom type stuff. So far, so good. Yesterday I did it. I have soreness in my arm. But other than that, I still wear my mask. And
that's still important.
Take precaution. Just because I did it, I'm not stopping what I'm doing as far as precaution is concerned.
Yeah. There are people who believe that if you get vaccinated, that it's all of a sudden all gone, no more risk, but you still have to wear your mask. You still have to distance yourself from other people and take those necessary precautions because this virus is still real. But I think what the virus does is that it eliminates the odds that you will die if you contract it. So.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I did see a video that was uploaded by a doctor, and specifically an African-American doctor who got the vaccine. And, I believe he worked at a, near hospital in the emergency ward, ICU. And he still caught the virus, brought it home, and infected his entire family. Now, even with that kind of news, you're saying, oh, okay, here's my point. Yeah, you see what I'm saying? But he made it clear that in taking the vaccine, it did not guarantee he could spread it. What the vaccine does, however, according to reports, is that it lessens the severity of your symptoms and lessens the chance of you dying.
Right.
I think that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing.
Yeah.
And, we're watching, I'm watching CDC and a lot of reports from different areas. And there have been people who've gotten the vaccine and still contracted the disease.
Sure.
But on the other hand, there have been reports that the hospitals are a lot more equipped and knowledgeable on how to treat it now. Because even my own COVID tracker app, I'm noticing just for my area, my state and my counties, that cases fluctuate even now, but deaths are plummeting.
Right.
Which is saying that between the vaccinations and the adaptability of emergency wards and you know, healthcare providers that have just really figured out a way to tackle this virus when it comes in the door are two pluses. So while I'm still on the fence, I still believe that there is some efficacy worth mentioning.
Chuck, what I need you to do, I need you to be the priest of your house and tell the musician in your house that this is what we're doing.
Don't even start that.
Okay, here we go.
I would. You know what? If I tried that, even if I were convinced, you know,
just laugh, right?
I would probably be wearing a Kurzweil piano on my head. So
he knows how it goes.
That's why I always, you know, confer with her on that.
Sure, no, I definitely
know. Yeah. And when she says, you know, really, I think we ought to do it. Even if I were hesitant, I would do it because I certainly don't. I could not live with her knowing, oh, well, she's got the vaccine and I don't. Ha ha. Let's see what happens.
Right.
No, I don't want to play that
together.
game.
I like that. Right. I think that's important. And I also have not had the vaccine yet, but I'm not anti-vaccine. I do think that I will eventually get it. I haven't rushed out to do my research, but I am starting to see where it's available in my area. So when that time comes, like you, Charles, it would be something that my husband and I would do together. So that's kind of where I am. But the interesting part to me is some of the discussions that I've been around since. You know, I haven't really been around a lot of people, but I went somewhere recently where a group of people were talking about how, and they seemed to me to be anti-vaccine, but for me, it seemed more political based. And that was strange to me. I didn't realize, well, I did realize, but I didn't know how extreme people were allowing their political affiliations to dictate whether or not they were going to take, because they almost saw it as here, you know, I don't trust this because of how it's being presented by this group of people. And I thought that was kind of sad, that is the basis for why you're deciding not to take the vaccine. But that's a whole nother topic.
Well, I think there's some things to consider, though. And me being I'm just a news hound, and I'm looking at articles and journalists, especially independent journalists who are not afraid to report on the truth. There is some hidden agenda and some back activity going on with big pharma, with corporations, and I think we need to keep an eye on that. I mean, it's not about being political; it's about getting the truth. And you know, several economic reporters, and these are independent. I can't depend on corporate-based reporting. Because they're not going to report the whole truth. But as I find independent reporters who report on the back channels of the whole industrial complex of big pharma, and the money that's being made, and how they're already saying you're going to need boosters every year, they're looking at the dollar signs, and it makes me cautious about whether this has to, you know, take place. So it's good to research and cross-reference, even after you've made the decision. It's good to keep an eye on it. Don't think that, well, I got the vaccine and I'll just go skipping down the road and don't worry about it. You just really have to be, open to both sides of the argument.
It's true. And I wanted to share this comment from one of our viewers, listeners from this episode. This is a portion of what Anthony Langley had to say. He said, honestly, as the program went on, you guys hit the points that I have been thinking about through my research. So you mentioned doing the research, and I think we brought out some of what was happening at that time. And there's even more research now. So I think many of you are relating and can relate to how we felt about the vaccine even back then.
And one thing I do want to add to it is that, and especially with Anthony Langley's a friend of mine too, is that we still have to boost our immune system.
Absolutely.
Even without the scare of the the virus. I mean, that's the way we ought to live anyway. The healthful living, still get your sunshine, still get your water, still get your vitamin C's, your D's, and do whatever you need to do anyhow, even without that. So remember, our bodies are wonderfully and fearfully made. And did I say it right? Fearfully and wonderfully made, whatever.
We got you. Yeah.
And there's way to repair it with herbs and different things. So I'm not running from the natural either, but I still want to try to be responsible also to not just me, but others around me.
Absolutely.
Well, I think, and not to belabor it, because I know we have some other topics and questions to get to, but there have been some studies. They're not quite blue zone type studies, but they are studies of some indigenous people in other countries who don't have access to modern hospitals and ambulances. And they have taken on fighting this virus with whatever natural herbs and things that they have available to them. And there has been record of folk that have turned the virus around naturally. And again, I'm not saying, go to the market and pick up a bunch of herbs and you're fine. I'm just saying that it's worth looking at other approaches to this. These people, and, I can bring it in another show, these people did it because they had to do it. They had no alternative. I mean, they were so rural and so off the beaten path, they couldn't get ambulances to transport people.
Wow.
So they did what they could. And in many cases, they were able to survive, the virus. So, yeah, I mean, I think it also depends on your social level.
You're a nerd, Chuck.
That's right.
Proven more, right?
Right. I'm like Starship Enterprise, man. Shields up. You know what I'm saying? Shields up. Don't put them down.
No.
But yeah, I think it's an individual decision, and I welcome the power of choice, for people to decide.
Absolutely. All right, so that's our update on the vaccine. We moved on after that to this was a conversation that Tally led. Episode 4, Call Me Uncle Tom. Now, when we first heard this, we were like, wait, where are you going with this? You guys remember. But he broke it down for us, in a way that I think we all kind of hopped on board and agreeing that, some narratives we can't allow to be changed. And it was great to be educated on its origin and how it had been twisted. And many of our viewers, as they watch, kind of and listen, co-signed those same sentiments, that they thought it was also important for us to expose error when we know of it, and make sure we share more knowledge of, once we are aware, but make sure others are aware of some of these disparities in our history that we may hear. You guys remember that discussion?
I was enlightened myself. I mean, when he gave the historical background, it was very enlightening and turned a negative thing into a positive thing.
I still think we ought to make T-shirts.
Yeah, call me Uncle Tom.
Me Uncle Tom.
Yep, call me Uncle Tom.
You can't say that out there. What if somebody hears this and they do it before us?
Okay, you're right about that. We're trademarking it right now.
If only it worked that way.
What a wake up call, though! When he came out with it, I was especially kicked back from it to say, well, Uncle Tom. And I remember the movie. I remember reading the book, and just to think that he was more of a helper. He was more of a positive influence, and we will never know that unless you become nerds with us.
And read for ourselves.
But it's amazing, and I still think about that. How many other negative connotations are really positive out there?
Exactly.
So I think that's something that we need to even dive deep into. And those of you who are listening now, check out that episode if you haven't seen it, because or if you haven't heard it. Both ways on Apple, either one of those, because I think that is a big enlightenment to the way that others cover up our
history.
Our history. That's it. That's basically it. Our history, the positive side of it.
Yeah, skew it. Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's had a spotlight on the power of narrative and why it's important for us to know our story and own it, because if someone else tells it for you, you're in big trouble.
That's right. And you'll be upset. And that's what we were trying to prevent everyone from dealing with. Now, this kind of came up during that, even though it wasn't really related to the topic. Someone commented, Tiffany Brissett commented, "You all need another female host," and we agree. Like, you know, that's something that we're working on. The interesting thing about it.
Okay, Tiffany, we'll be doing you know, some
we'll be calling you.
Soon.
Are you ready? We'll be calling you. Are you ready? Yeah.
Yes, it's still in our minds. The thing about it is, you know, for us, we've gotten into this rhythm now. We just know it's time to go, and so we're open to others joining us. We're working on the best way to make that happen.
But here's the thing, and it has nothing to do with females or not. It has everything to do with who join us. You know, we're pretty critical in the green room and after the green room. So whoever joins us after this, you know, you got to put your you have to hang with us.
Yeah. we got it.
Okay, I don't want to upset the podcast.
No, it's okay. After that, episode 5, we talked about being Clubhouse craze. I think you missed this one, Charles, but I think you saw it. Mm-hmm. You know, we were talking about this Clubhouse craze and how everybody's on Clubhouse and staying up to 2-3 o'clock in the morning, watching different things going on. Even some of our pastors commented how they were also on it. I think, Pastor Davis, he says, "I've been clubbing for a while. I love Clubhouse." So we found out there are a lot of people out there who are, you know, engaged in this, pastors, individuals. So I think everybody's finding something positive out there in the Clubhouse. Now I think, was it GP? One of you admitted that they were spending several hours on there.
It was me.
GP's having a baby. He's having a baby now, so that thing is going shut down.
I've distanced myself.
And you have? Okay.
I have limited my clubbing to only about 2 days in a week.
Really?
Other days, I'm not on the app. It's closed. Yeah.
Wow.
So we talked about
that's
that.
A good move.
Yeah.
GP is the one that got me onto it, and you know, GP is one of the youngest ones that's around here, nerd. So what happened? He's the one that told me about it, and I think we just explained it. Explain it to me that you know, you have to be sponsored kind of like by somebody else to be able to get into Clubhouse. But Clubhouse is
and you have to be on iPhones.
Right.
You have to be on iPhones too. So the way that I see it now, I don't see that it leveled off. I think that it's expanding to different things.
Not for me.
I know, Chuck.
That's what Tally said too in that comment.
But it's still there. I don't listen as much as I did before. I'm going straight to like Bible studies, you know what I mean, and sticking in Bible studies and stay right there. And people are inviting me to say something, but that's for the new heads, man. So I give it up to Henry Davis, who, you know, hey, you go ahead, man. Keep doing what you got to do, Pastor.
Yeah. You know, as a side issue, I don't know if you've been following, a lot of the other social networks now are coming up with Clubhouse clones. And you're going to see a lot of it now. Discord, Facebook. I mean, everybody's going to jump on that bandwagon. The question, you know, not to throw a wrench into the whole thing, the thing we have to be careful of is security. Because a lot of social networks are starting to open the door to a lot of things. And of course, you know what their point is for that. Well, it is a good platform, and most times social networks open up with very good intentions. And then you get folk on there that abuse it, and you get security issues. So I just want to throw that in, you know. I don't Clubhouse, but you know, that's me.
If they come up with it on Android,
even if it were, you know, if they come up with an Android app, which they will, because
they will.
I can see you on it, Charles.
Chuck is going to get on it. Watch.
Yeah, he is going to.
You think so?
We just come back to this episode right to this time that we are right now. Chuck got you. You're connected now.
He'll even be leading some of the discussion.
Yeah, I don't think I have time for it. You know, I'd have to.
Yeah, from 12 to 3 a.m. You'll be fine.
Yeah, right.
But that was fun to kind of see where everyone was with Clubhouse. But we moved on to episode 6, and you know, this was Women's History Month. And so, you know, as a team, we committed to making sure we recognize, you know, topics related to women and some of the things that they experience. And so that was called Women We See You. And so we all shared some of the women in our lives that have made an impact and kind of highlighted the importance of, you know, women being recognized for their contributions. And of course, we had several people kind of share and echo some of those sentiments. I didn't post it up here, but one gentleman shared a list in our YouTube comments of women that he wanted to recognize for various things. So I think that was a great discussion. And of course, we kept the topic going in a later episode, which we'll get to, where we invited Pastor Reed, Lisa Smith Reed, and Caitlin. But
yeah, you know, let me just say, before and after we tackled that subject, you know, I said to myself, you know, we are still talking about equality. When you look down through history, women did some amazing things all through human history.
Yeah.
And yet here we are in 2021 having to have, you know, Women's Month. I mean, will society ever get to the point where it doesn't matter, you know, what the gender is?
Yep.
If you're a doctor, you're a doctor. You're not a female doctor, you're a doctor.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's and we're still doing that. Even in the church, we're still doing that. Female pastor, you know, I have a female pastor. Big deal.
Yeah.
I mean,
it does make you wonder how long we have to make those distinctions, you know, even Black History Month. But I think a lot of people are saying, you know, there's so much time to make up that it probably will be indefinite that we have to bring these things to the forefront. But
so do we have to accept that sexism and racism will be here until Jesus returns? Or can we try to eradicate it down here? Like, how are you guys feeling about that?
I think we have to not accept it, meaning be okay with the fact that it exists. But I do think we have to recognize that, you know, the whole point of Jesus coming back is to take us out of this sinful world. So there's still going to be a certain measure of sin that will exist till the end. But I still think we have an obligation to work towards those changes that we would like to see, but recognizing that we may not see the full, you know, fruition in this lifetime.
I think you have to create the language in your own bubble, even with your children. You know, you have to use the right language so that they understand that you're not making a differentiation between male and female in any particular. You know, I get to watch a lot of keynote addresses from tech companies, and more they are bringing out female engineers, designers. And the thing about it is that when they announce them to come on the stage and talk about technology, even now, in some circles, when a female walks out on the stage to talk about, you know, new computer chips, some people are like, okay, she's a computer engineer, she's a chip engineer. Others are like, oh my goodness, it's a woman that's in charge of that department. It's like really, I mean, we really have to go there. You know, she's qualified, she's an engineer, and this company hired her to do her job. Has nothing to do with her being a female. But we still have that mindset. You know, so if you see a young child that sees something like that, says, oh, it's a girl, you know, you have to say, no, wait, hold up. What difference does it make if it's a girl? Why are you saying, oh, it's a girl?
Yeah.
Are we talking about episode 9, or are we talking about?
No, well, not
because I see it merging. From what we talk about. Because I'll wait because I have a question. I can't wait to ask Latasha. So let's.
Oh, okay. So after we dealt with women, influential women in our own lives, Pat, you led the next episode 7. which was called Hedging and Leveraging, GameStop Lessons. And, this is
me and Chuck had a fight in the green room and after the green room.
Yeah.
Right.
That was fun.
But it generated a lot of commentary and questions with our viewing audience, which is good. This is kind of what we wanted to do. We wanted to be able to raise hot topics and see where different people were coming from. And we did have a question that came up for you, Charles.
Wow, they go ahead now. They hit Charles with it. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Chuck.
yeah, come on.
All right. And, Miguel Serrant, he's one of our volunteer pastors. He asked, is investing in all forms bad? And that's based on your comments. He thought maybe that was your impression. Please share. What are your thoughts?
Well, to be frank, no, I don't think all investing is bad. Any form of investing is bad. But that our financial systems have become very complex now. The stock market, Wall Street, the NASDAQ, the Dow, trying to understand it and how to invest. I don't study it. I don't follow it because I don't have money to invest. And I think what I'm actually saying is I don't have money to lose. Now, maybe there are people that have money that if they lose it, they lose it. No big deal. But there are others who can't afford it and they're doing it. I looked up when I knew that we would deal with this. I looked up several articles of individuals who talked about the losses that they had from investing, big losses. They were disappointed. They didn't know what to do about it. Some recovered, some didn't. So all I'm saying is, to each his own. If you have the money to invest, that's fine. You have venture capitalists who fund different ventures that are, startups, things like that. Even that's somewhat of a gamble. But I think a lot of venture capitalists will keep their eye on a new startup and say, okay, this is going well, or this is not going well. We need to cut this now or bail now, whatever. It's complex. It hurts my brain to try to figure out how to invest. And I just think that it is a measure of gambling. It is. Depending on what economists you talk to, they will tell you that it's gambling on a different level. Now, is it successful? For a lot of people, it is. And God bless you. But I think there's some people that just aren't ready for that. And just because you invest does not guarantee you will have a positive return. So that's just my position.
No, and it kind of came up too, even though I didn't post this question, because I think Pat talked about the 401k programs that our employers use, and that was a question that came up. Is that wrong for us to be part of the 401k program because we know that those funds are being invested? So that I guess that you kind of answer that as well. Is maybe
any instrument that has anything to do with our current banking system is risky, period. People say, oh, we got the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is neither federal or reserve. They're big banks, and every country followed suit in that. So not to get into this, thing about the monetary system and the fiat money and all that. We could do a show on that. I just think people need to be aware. Educate yourself. If you have money to invest, and I'm sure Pat would agree with me, if you have money to invest, get with someone, a professional who knows the markets, to know when to leave, like the old song says, you have to know when to hold up, when to fold up, so basically that's my position. I do think it's a measure of gambling. Maybe that's just my personal feeling about it. But I have seen some exceptions to the rule, and I've seen people lose their shirts. So there you have it.
And let me speak for the church's sake. As far as the church is concerned, they're making conservative efforts. They're very conservative. They're not aggressive at all. So, and I'm not saying that they should or they shouldn't be. I just know that a lot of people, and I've pushed that out there. Oh, even the church is doing it, but the church is doing it from a standpoint of of a standpoint of very conservative in the 401ks, and so that they would rather have the minimum
risk,
right? Minimum risk than to go out there and say, hey, let me do this myself. You don't know anything about it. You're going on the height of something that you've heard, etc. Even though I do both, I do know that tomorrow you could lose everything based on a decision that you have made and not sticking with a discipline side of it. That's what I teach. I teach the discipline side of it and not the gambling side of it. And there is a difference between both. The scary part, though, with all of this is that it's easy to move from the discipline side to the gambling side, and you don't even know that you're there, right? So you have to be careful of where you are. That's with buying a house, buying a house near a school, buying a house where the neighborhood can change. And I use that in real estate because buying a home to me is investment. It's an investment, but it is, again, it's not as aggressive. It's more conservative as far as it's concerned. You look down in the end of it. So I'm not going to fight with you today, Chuck. I just don't.
Well, to your point on decision, how decisions can change things. Unfortunately, there are decisions made by other people in high places that we don't see. We don't see.
Yep, sure.
That will affect your
I agree finances.
With that. And you have no control over it.
Hey, gang, as we're talking about this, we need to talk about Bitcoins one day. The new cryptocurrencies that's coming out. One day we'll talk about that and see.
Yeah, we'll add that to the list.
I want to talk about the NFTs.
Yeah.
What a bunch of hooey.
Here we go.
Anyway,
here we
go.
All right, well, that'll be the title. NFTs. What a bunch of
hooey. Yeah.
No, that's not the show title.
All right. So after that episode, we moved on to episode 8, and this is where we dealt with something that was happening in our society that we were seeing on the news. This attack on the Asian American community. What happened in Atlanta with that shooting. We were talking about, advocacy pretty much, when these types of things happen, to various groups. And, we brought up the fact that we cannot be apathetic or just turn a blind eye if it doesn't affect our community directly. And we had a comment from Gary Jones. He says, yes, he agreed with us. Yes, we can be apathetic. We have to be sensitive to these things as Christians. And, even some of the other comments I was reading, some people were just saying it's even a hard topic for them to even talk about. You get so upset and discouraged by what you're seeing that even verbalizing how you feel just makes you get angry all over again.
Yeah, well, I think when I look at this topic and others, especially with Black Lives Matter, and of course with the case going on right now and how it's affecting people, I think the church, this is my personal opinion, I think the church has lost a measurable amount of empathy. We're in our bubble. We read the headlines and we say, oh, gee, that's a shame. And then we're thinking about it. Empathy is something that I believe that the Lord requires us to have, because empathy means I do care. I care about you. And I just don't, it's not about, oh, I agree with the situation or disagree with the situation, but actually caring, showing empathy. For instance, if your church is in a community of Asian people, I mean, why not approach them and why not let them know that you're not a part of this, and that you have empathy and you care for them as, fellow citizens or community folk or whatever. But I think we need to make more of a concerted effort to display empathy.
Yeah. And it seems like sometimes the only time we care is when something happens to a Seventh-day Adventist.
Yeah. That's the only title they have. And I think we don't recognize how diverse our church is, still realizing that our church is made up of several different ethnicities and cultures. And if we are a church body and we're a family that we say we are, we have to care about each one and each group that's being impacted. And like you said, GP, it's not just Adventists at large, is communities within the congregation that we have to be more mindful of. And I think individuals are, even when the church, the organization of church doesn't step up, we do have individuals and local leaders who are taking the charge. And I encourage that, and hopefully it'll trickle its way up. And
I'm glad we did, though. And let me not brag about it, but Allegheny East is Te Ethne, and we have many different nationalities in our and what do we call them? International groups. That we have, ethnic groups that we have. And I loved it when I saw that our president put out something for our Asian groups. And to me, it made me more rally behind them, instead of staying on the side and say, okay, yeah, we do care. But it's more than saying that we do care. Exactly. It's sharing that, we ought to do this not just for them, but we ought to do this when there's the Haitian crisis, and there's a kidnapping, and there's a, we always need to be behind each other, either way it goes. And that's what the true meaning of church is. When we did this episode, This Is America, I woke up because, not to throw a monkey wrench in it, but, I was always taught to play it safe. Growing up, be safe about it. Grew up in a Jewish neighborhood. Dad said, don't argue with them. Come home if they throw rocks at you, whatever the case may be. And so it was always a safe place. But when we did This Is America, it woke us up. It woke me up to recognize that it's bigger than where we are. And now we're going through the actual case, another case with George Floyd. It's just. It's amazing to even know, to figure that somebody would even back this up by saying that. How do you get not a prosecutor? How do you get a defender out of this? Even though everyone has a right to one, how do you get a defender out of that? So, this is America. This is
it's a question.
Yeah, I have to take a moment.
Right,
to give
it is
kudos.
You're right.
Give kudos to our president.
Right.
President Fordham. I went to cover an event that he went along with his son, Elder Fordham, from, I believe it was from not North Philadelphia. It was another section of Philadelphia where a young black teenager was shot by police in the area. And Elder Fordham, was informed of that, and he went down to the neighborhood and went on the march. I mean, he was right out in the middle of the street marching with the neighborhood. Now, these people have never seen Elder Fordham before, but he was there to support the effort of, people being mindful of how the police are treating young black teenagers in that particular neighborhood. So that's what I'm talking about, demonstrating. And we can talk in our ivory towers, but do we want to get out on the street and march with those people? They're not Adventists. Some of them are not Christians, but do we empathize with them enough to say, hey, I will march with you?
Right. That's what it's really all about, advocacy. So yeah, that was definitely an episode that caused a lot of reflection, and we hope our viewers and listeners felt the same way. And then the last episode that we're going to talk about today is the one we did with women in leadership, which I alluded to earlier with Pastor Lisa Reed Smith, which and Caitlin Griffin. Yeah, I was like, what do I want to call it, Griffin? Which those were our first guests, so we were happy to see some other faces on the screen and interact. And that conversation, garnered a lot of feedback and commentary. And one of them, I'm going to share it. One of them, this was one of our pastors even, brought up the point that organizations that include women in leadership do better. And that's based on some research that he had done. So I think it was great to affirm and bring more awareness to the fact that we can get a little bit more comfortable and rest in the fact that, women in leadership is not something that's should be considered taboo anymore or as strange as, it once was. And that was a great dialogue What do you guys remember from that discussion? That wasn't too long ago. That was one of our recent ones.
I can say what I remember. I remember that we expected you to do something at the end of that. I enjoyed when I'm not going to say enjoyed. I woke up about the surveys. That's what woke me up. That's I use the wrong word when I say enjoyed it, but I like the way she talked about Pastor Reed talked about the surveys, and there are questions in the survey. Do you want a woman pastor?
Inherent bias question.
Right. So I knew that at the end of that, those who can go back and watch episode 9, I think it was, right? Episode 9, that because Latasha is in leadership position, we were expecting her to say. No, actually, she said she was going to say something about it. She's like, "Oh, I'm going to say something about it." So, if this is an update,
no, it's funny because when I heard her say, we don't really know what people are going to say when we come, and when I heard her mention that, it's like, oh, wow, that's because that's always a question we hear. What can we do to make? Right. And some of the answers are very, general. Support us, invite us to speak, but when she gave a very specific one, I was like, wow. And to me, it didn't seem like too big of an ask. So I followed up, with our ministerial director, Dr. Donaldson. I had a conversation with him and shared the sentiment, behind it. And I have to say, he was, very open to it, felt, although, and this is the thing we have to realize. Sometimes when these things are in place, people don't realize how it's impacting or affecting people.
Right.
And that's why it's important for us to speak, because we bring it to their attention. And once we bring it to their attention, they're willing to address it. And that was his response. He shared that he would remove the question.
Wow.
From the survey going forward. Now, of course, we know that some biases are still in place, but that doesn't mean that we have to support it with documentation. And so,
that's a win. That's big.
That's a win. It's a win, though. It's a win.
Yeah, it's and it was a small thing that I think has a major impact, and it just like I said, it goes to show that instead of us, why does this here complaining about something or things that we see, go to the people that can make the changes, bring it to their attention, and you'll be surprised at some of the results that may come from it.
What surprised me, I'm sorry, Chuck, real quick. What surprised me out of this is that she mentioned, and it may not be the same wording, that sometimes it's women who call, sometimes we hear, it's men, but I learned from that piece that there's a lot of it's some women that stops that from occurring or forming the glass ceiling, and I think that being able, not to say that we couldn't say something to our ministerial director or to our administration about it, it has more power, it's more potent when you're able to take it there. And that's the reason why I look at it as a win, because it's not what I think, it's what you know. You know what I mean? And so, experience. And so I think that's where it came across as being a whole lot better. And also looking at Kaylin from Pine Forge, who really made me feel like it's safe. Adventism is still safe, whether female or male, doesn't make a difference. The leadership qualities that she has already from the standpoint of being an academy, there's no holds bar. She's ready to make that move, and her attitude even kind of shows like, oh, you're not in my way, and if you are, I'm going right around you. I was proud to see her see those two, one who has been the first pastor in the regional first female pastor in the regional conference, and seeing her in this leadership role tells us that there are changes that has already been made, but there are changes coming. Just look out, it's coming.
Yeah,
I think that we deal with our biases sometimes wrong, and while I don't believe we did in show 9, we dealt with some of the other aspects of our biases, but maybe we'll do it in another show.
Sure.
But there are biases that reflect physical ability.
Yep.
There's some people don't feel that women should be soldiers. Women shouldn't be football players. Women shouldn't be whatever. If it involves physical, ability. And while hands down, I believe we all agree that intellectually and scholarly, women are on par with men. But then there are some who separate out women for certain jobs. They say, well, a woman is not built, like a tank and be, out there, being real physical. And so maybe we can talk about that the next time, because there are a lot of organizations and a lot of companies and a lot of careers that involve physical ability. And some people feel that a man is better for certain jobs than a woman, simply because of physical, not intellectual. It's physical ability. So maybe we can talk about
Chuck,
that.
we had also a conversation in the green room concerning other countries. Yes, just because we're in America, we can always have a voice to what's going on in some of the countries in the Middle East and some of the countries in Africa. We don't do that either. So are we complicit when we know that these are the things that's going on elsewhere? So this episode 9 could be 9 3/4, 9 1/2. I mean, we could add on to this.
So many ways to go from there.
Well, some people feel, a lot of Americans feel, well, I know what we do here. Who cares what Saudi Arabia does? Well, I care what Saudi Arabia does because of our international connection with them. They have a terrible, civil rights and, laws and things like that. Sure. Terrible. I mean, just terrible. And yet, should we agree with that? When a woman can't leave her home unless she gets permission from the male in the house, or the male goes with her. I mean, there was a time the crown prince wouldn't let them get driver's license. That's ridiculous.
Absolutely.
And but we'll trade with them, though. We'll sell them some F-15s.
Yeah, right.
But we won't tell them that, hey, you guys need to get off of this thing. And some Arabs feel like, well, that's our culture. It's none of your business. So that's another little.
It's a whole other episode.
Yeah. We've got to make it our business. All right, guys. Well, can you believe it? In this episode, we've recapped 9.
Wow.
9 episodes from the Upset podcast. And I have to say, as we close and we're reflecting, this has kind of been refreshing for me to review some of the topics that we've covered so far. And also it makes me excited about some of the things that we have coming up. Sometimes we thought about this podcast, you're thinking about what we'll be able to share. But I think I've learned a lot.
I think we should add. I think we should have one with just, the last 10 hours of Justin as his baby is coming. We need to follow him. We need to just follow the whole thing. Cutting the umbilical cord. He's gonna be right there. Look at him.
Get that cell phone ready, man. Come on.
Yeah, I know. We're excited about that.
Yep.
But yeah, I just think I'm happy with where the Upset podcast has been and where it's going. And we hope that you all out there who are listening and watching will continue to subscribe. We're on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, and share. And of course, as you can see, we love your comments. So we want you, if you don't want to put them publicly, sometimes people don't want to put them on Facebook or YouTube, email us. And if you want to be anonymous, that's fine as well. Yeah. But that email address, upset@aecsd.com. Share with us some of the topics you want us to discuss. We said we want to dig a little deeper and get a little closer to the edge. So tell us some of the topics you want to see us.
I have one. I want to talk about Lil Nas X.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let's
Absolutely.
do it.
Need to talk about it.
It's important.
Need to talk about it.
It's been said.
Awesome.
I'd like to think that one of our key points is that we don't necessarily deal with things that are headlines and talked about. We deal with the things that aren't talked about.
Yeah.
Maybe I only know Paul Harvey, a great news guy on radio, but Paul Harvey had a thing when he opened up his show. He said, the news, Now you're going to hear the rest of the story.
Oh, wow. I like that. I like that.
Oh, that's
like
a great tagline.
Wow. Wow.
And believe it or not, if you look back on Paul Harvey, great news, news voice, huge. He was part of the Adventist Church, actually.
Wow. Get out of here.
Yeah, a lot of people didn't know that. He was married to a Seventh-day Adventist. I don't know how much he actually worshiped, but major. If you look up Paul Harvey, you're going to see a lot of great stories about him. He was just a great radio news guy, and he did do the rest of the story part. He would say, "Oh yeah, you heard this headline, but this is the part you're not hearing." And that's why I love to listen to his program, because it wasn't what we were hearing; it was what we were not hearing.
Yeah. Well, I have to say that podcast nerds, we went without Tally, Nick Tally today, but it's okay. Those who are listening right now, you don't have to have a thesaurus or a dictionary for this episode. So we're pretty good with that.
4th grade level.
Yeah. You won't need it.
Yeah. All right, guys, it's been real. We've enjoyed upsetting. We could continue to look forward to more upsetting, more topics, and we just thank you as our audience for engaging with us and sharing your questions and sharing your comments. That's what we're all about, and we hope you'll continue to do so. All right, guys, here's to several more episodes to come.
Peace.
Peace.
Take care.